Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to June 7th, 2022 Regina Planning Commission meeting. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The state of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to those lands and the diverse Indigenous people whose ancestral footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcome here and call Regina home. Some members of the state administration are attending the meeting today through video conferencing. I would like to remind those who are attending through video conferencing the following. Please be sure that your video cameras and microphones are turned off. When speaking, remember to unmute your microphone, enable your video camera. Delegations will be attending meeting today in person and through teleconferencing to address the Commission on different items on the agenda. Reports will be considered by City Council at its meeting scheduled for June 15th, and the deadline to register as a delegation for the City Council meeting is 10 p.m. on Thursday, June 9, 2022. Thank you. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Zahedniak. Thank you. Anyone opposes? That is carried. Now we will do adoption. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from May 10, 2022 meeting? Celeste York, thank you. Anyone opposes? No, that is carried. So if you could indulge me before we start our first report, I would like to invite our newest member of our Planning Commission, Mr. Maynard Sontag, to our Oval, to the City Hall, to do some great work. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you for sticking your neck out, or hand to hand, lend a hand to volunteer, and it's always good for that volunteerism. So welcome aboard and thank you. Okay. We will go to RPC 22-17, proposed concept plan and zoning bylaw amendment, 8701 Dewdney Avenue. And I believe we have a delegation with us here. Paul Gregory and Blair Forrester, if you please, from Westera Development Corp. Okay, I believe you have the microphones on the red, so please introduce yourself for the record, the organization you represent, if any, and where you from, or we're not calling you here.
I'll give you everything.
You will have 5 minutes for your presentation. Afterwards, there may be questions from the Commission.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Administration and Planning Commission. My name is Blair Forrester. I'm the President of Forrester Harvard Development Corp., as well as the President of Westera Development Corp. With me today is Paul Gregory. He's our residential land manager. And then we have a subsequent delegation behind us who are planning consultants from Calgary Brown & Associates. We're very pleased today to be here to finally bring forward another stage of our Westera neighborhood in West Regina. We signed the original servicing agreement in 2016, and following that we saw probably one of the sharpest declines in the residential housing market that the province has ever seen. Our builder group has been good to work with. They've been very patient, and we're finally at a point where they're working through their lot inventory, generating a meaningful amount of sales, and have given us a commitment for this next phase of development. The phase that we're contemplating bringing on with your approval and that of City Council is 135 lots on approximately 16 acres of land on the west end of the concept plan. This land is serviced right now and currently has a large market commercial zoning on it. As we're all aware, the large format commercial industry has experienced an accelerated change, especially due to COVID, and those retailers that would traditionally occupy this land. This is the Walmarts, the Costcos, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, the Targets of the world. Well, no longer Target in Canada, have pretty much shelved their expansion plans. So this was an opportunity for us to increase the population density of the neighborhood, which in itself is going to help us execute on our neighborhood commercial node, which is the one that ourselves and the residents are desperately wanting, which is a grocery anchored node, pharmacy, QSR, and the like, that will service the growing community and also service the businesses that are coming and locating in the GTH. We're all very excited to hear about the Amazon announcement that just came, but we already had a lot of economic activity happening out there with the Cargill announcement, Red Leaf going just north of the GTH, SaskPower putting a new facility out there. These are thousands of construction jobs and probably 700 or 800 permanent full-time positions following those openings. So we are going to be asking for your approval of the development at this time, and both Paul and I are here to answer any questions that you may have of us.
Thank you very much. Well, you are ahead of the schedule here. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I'll go around the room. There is questions already. Just 1 second. Councillor Zaidnia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today. So you had touched on in your presentation that this is thought to be, like, this is, if you can get more residential development, this would drive commercial development to Westera. Can you expand on that a bit more, just how this will help to get the commercial development that folks are looking for in Westera? Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, we actually signed a grocery store deal in Westera, and we still have binding paper with a grocer, but it is at their sole discretion as to when they're going to commence construction on the store. With the slowdown in the economy, the lack of rooftops going into Westera, they have decided to sit on the sidelines and wait for the appropriate time that the trade area can support their operation. This will go a long way. It's only 135 single-family and duplex lots, but this will go a long way to show confidence that the neighborhood will continue to expand. And I would say we're still a little pioneering on the west side of town, but it's all about investing in the future growth of the neighborhood, and that's what we expect that we'll be able to demonstrate to these retailers if we're successful in this and future phases.
Okay, thank you. So that makes sense to me. I know that our administration has done the communications, their standard communications process of letting folks within 75 meters, I believe, know, and then posting a sign at the site. At this point, have you folks done any other communication aside from that with the community?
Through the chair, we have not done any formal communication to the residents of Westera other than mentioning it in the town hall that Councillor Zakiniak hosted, and we felt that we were clear that we were moving in this direction at that time. But what we're going to do is we've got a Westera residents, I'll call it an internet site, but it's a social media site just for the Westera residents. We'll post a rationale letter and the site plan on that, and we'll do it prior to the council meeting and allow them the opportunity to probably reach out to Paul and answer any questions that they might have about the application. We still have 55 acres of commercial out there, which is a significant amount. Just by order of magnitude, our grasslands project in Harbor Landing is 88 acres, and that's 1 million square feet. So we have a significant amount of commercial land out there, and I don't believe this will in any way impact or the commercial services other than in a positive way.
Okay, that makes sense to me, and I think with a further explanation, it would make it very clear that's my thoughts anyway, about the benefits of and the rationale behind why you're doing this. So I think that will be helpful, and we'll be able to hear how that process went at the council meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I should clarify this is my ward, that's why I'm so asking these questions and interested in hearing this engagement with folks. So anyway, I appreciate that. I think I'll save some comments for that portion. I don't have any further questions. Thank you for your willingness to take that step.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Zahinyak. I believe no one around here. Councillor Shaw, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, Blair and Paul. First of all, you mentioned the developers and you said they were from Calgary. Is that who's there with you right now?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that question.
Consultant is the consultant is with you, right? Someone is online?
Through the chair, yes. Our next delegation is our planning consultants, Brown and Associates. They're out of Calgary. They did the original concept plan for Westera, and they assisted us in the information that administration requested on this application.
Okay. Keep hearing this. Everybody's from Calgary. We're not using Saskatchewan, Regina-based people. Kind of makes me sad, but I'm sure there's a whole bunch of reasons behind that. Mr. Forrester, school, land locations for the school, has that been talked about, or is there an area?
Shaw?
I didn't.
Councillor Shaw,
Yes.
There's something funky going on with the feed for you, because I'm going to have
I'm gonna,
something's going to happen
I'm
to
gonna
my
turn off my
eyeballs.
cat.
Yeah, just take your
Okay.
camera off. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
better.
okay. I'm on my mobile phone. That's why. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see in the plan here any land development set aside for schools. Has that been in the plan, or has that been talked about through the chair?
Through you, Councillor Fendura, yes. Our concept plan contemplated the entire 500 acres in a stage format, and we do have a school site located directly in the center of the project, and we are very optimistic that that the school board will see fit to place a school in Westera. Also, servicing the Dieppe neighborhood as quickly as possible. But again, I believe the school board and our retail partners are all kind of doing the same thing and saying we need the residential demand to warrant it. And so anything we can do to increase the population, I think will reflect positively on the school as well.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leading into with this. So with this, you're going to be bringing in 135 single-family dwelling lots, which will create schools, which will create the business. Is there anything further you can tell us about the business development in the area? Any hopefuls in the next few years is what's coming? Do you see anything through the chair?
Through you, Councillor Findor, if you're relating, if your question is related to the retail commercial, I've developed 10 million square feet of retail in my career. It's our core business. It always has been. If you're familiar with our Acre 21 development we've done in southeast Regina, I would say that the retail offering that you see there is very reflective of what is contemplated to happen in the Westera neighborhood. It's just going to take a little bit longer because the population density surrounding it wasn't as significant.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that comparison to Acre 21. I'm actually pretty excited about this. I think this will offer some great new homes in the area. That's much needed in order to bring the population up. Good luck with our supply chain and getting things built. So all the best to you, and thanks very much. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shaw, thank you. Are there any further questions to the delegation? Do you want to hit your microphone? Just push the button. Push the button. There you go. Hang on. Yeah, just push the button and leave it. Yeah, and I'll push one here, just like flying an airplane. There we go. Right?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a question through the chair to the delegation. I think I heard it a couple times. It wasn't in the package, but I heard 135 housing units. Is that correct, that we're contemplating with this change?
I'll let you answer that.
Yes, through the chair. There's 135 lots, 32 of which are duplex lots. The rest are single-family front attached lots.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. So, next question through the chair is, often when we'd have large format retail next to single-family residential or duplex, there might be maybe some kind of a buffering. Is there anything being proposed in this instance for delineation between those kind of opposing or different formats, I guess, different land uses? Thank you.
Forster, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. We, Canola Avenue is the street that will come straight through and separate the residential node from the commercial node. And we did back our duplex lots, so we tried to get a slightly higher density on the interface. So our duplex lots actually back the northern boundary of the site, then there's Canola Avenue, and then the large format retail starts. Obviously, there's always an interface, and we try to deal with it as best we can, but I can tell you that when commercial predates residential, it's always easier. But in this case, the land use is designated, and we and our builders will be very clear on what the land use will be long-term north of them.
Final question through the chair. So Canola looks like it's the street that runs east-west. It kind of goes to the mid-block, I would say, and then it turns. Is there any buffering to the west of where it would turn? It looks like it's just a property line maybe between the single family and the large format retail, unless I'm not reading that.
No, through the chair, that's the extent of the development of Canola right now. When we do another phase of development where it will warrant that infrastructure to be invested, that will become the transportation loop that goes behind the large format.
Through the chair, it would go out to Pinky then? Is that correct?
Through the chair, it will not intersect at Pinky. The intersection of Pinky is Westera Boulevard, which is 400 meters, which is on the south side of the development. Yeah. Just the spacing won't allow that intersection at that point.
Okay. Thanks.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the delegation? Going once, twice, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
You may return back to the gallery. We'll just 1 second. Okay, Grant, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
please introduce yourself for record, organization you
Sure,
represent,
my
where you're
name-
calling from. You'll have 5 minutes for a presentation. Afterwards, there may be a question from the delegation. Go ahead.
That sounds great. Thank you. Through the chair, my name is Grant Mahalshin. I'm with B&A Planning Group, agent to Westera Development Corporation. I'm also here with Nathan Petherick, partner with the B&A Planning Group in support of the subject applications. As mentioned in the report, the purpose of the application is to amend the Westera Phase 1 concept plan and to rezone the subject site, reducing the amount of large format commercial retail in favor of additional low and medium density residential in response to the changing market demand. The applications follow the Westera neighborhood plan, which envisions a mixed use neighborhood and meets the official community plan density targets, allowing for the efficient use of existing infrastructure and increases both the supply and variety of housing product in the community. The RL, residential low-rise zoning, with options for rural housing, semi-detached, and fourplexes, provides an appropriate transition between the low-density residential urban, or RU district, to the south, and the mixed market zone, MLM, to the north. The amendment still leaves ample, nearly 20 hectares, or roughly 50 acres of land, zoned for commercial development within the neighborhood. The change will add more residents in this first phase of the development, helping to attract retail opportunities sooner than otherwise would be expected, while addressing the demand for more housing. So with that, we respectfully request that your support for the applications and are available to answer any questions that you may have. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, are there any questions for the delegation? Looks like we don't have any questions. Thank you very much. You made yourself clear. Thank you for taking the time to present to us. Now you may leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move, now, can I get someone to move the recommendation? Move the report? Mr. Barkowski? Thank you. Ms. Bryden, can I direct that to you? Can you please introduce the report? And you need a microphone. Where are you? There.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Through the chair, the report before you is representing Westera Development Corporation's application to amend Westera Phase 1 concept plan by reconfiguring 6.55 hectares of large format retail land use to medium and low density residential land use, as shown in the appendices A 4.1 and 4.2 and as the delegation presented to you. Subject to the approval of the revised concept plan, the applicant also proposed to amend the zoning bylaw to rezoning the subject property from mixed large market zone to residential urban zone and residential low-rise zone, as shown in Appendix A1. Administration has reviewed the impact of the proposed concept plan and the zoning bylaw amendment and have determined that the amendments will continue to meet policies and objectives for the neighborhood development. The proposal is minor in that it decreases the amount of large format retail land available and increases the projected population of the approved Westera Phase 1 concept plan area by approximately 435 people, providing an overall neighborhood density increase from 50.33 to 51.9 persons per hectare, which is still above the OCP's minimum requirement of 50 people per hectare. The proposed development is supported by the OCP's policy, including those specific to increasing the housing supply, and the proposed development will add different housing forms to the neighborhood, accommodating the various needs of citizens who wish to live in the Westera neighborhood. The resulting land use pattern conforms to the city's complete neighborhood guidelines, and additionally, the proposed development maintains the urban character of the neighborhood. Thus, we recommend in favor of its applications. With me today, I have Mr. Podial, who would be able to answer any detailed questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Bryden. Any questions, any comments? Okay, Councillor Zahednia, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just have a few comments that I've heard. As I mentioned, I'm the councillor for Westera, and I've heard significant feedback from the residents of Westera who are very concerned about when there will be additional commercial development in the neighborhood. And so I did reach out to both Paul and Blair earlier today, and we came up with with some questions and wanting some more clarity about the rationale for the changes and what would be the expected impact of the changes. And so we came up with the solution of this feedback to the residents, so to make it clear for folks why the rationale for these changes, why it's expected that this will help drive additional commercial development. With more residential development in the neighborhood, that this will bring additional commercial development. I think that I understand the rationale, I support this process, and I certainly didn't want to delay it. So I think that if we can, with this additional communication to residents, it might help with any questions or concerns they may have. So I hope that that you'll also support this proposal. I do think that this will lead to additional development in West Area, not just residential, but commercial, and that's exactly what is needed there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Zajac. Okay, Mr. Aston, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair to the administration, I just have a question. So to build off the question I asked earlier about buffering, I find it kind of odd that we'd have single family up against MLM. Is there any buffering requirement in the zoning bylaw of any kind for that kind of interface?
Ms. Bryden?
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Mario will take that one.
Mario? Okay. Mario, go ahead.
Through the chair, the zoning bylaw will require that upon development of the commercial area, that visual screening will be required at the rear, so that could be in the form of landscaping and a fence if one is not already provided.
Thank you. Mr. Aston?
Oh, that's everything. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Any further questions, comments, anyone? Okay, we're all good? Okay. Madam Clerk, I'll call the vote, please.
Mr. Boykowski?
Oh, hang on. Let's throw some microphones on.
In
There
favor?
we go.
Sorry, Autumn.
Forgetting about that forward. Here. Go ahead, one more time.
Okay, Mr. Boykowski?
In favor.
Mr. Pham?
In favor.
Mr. Sontag?
In favor.
Ms. York?
In favor.
Councillor Shaw?
In favor.
Mr. Aston?
In favor?
Councillor Zakidniak?
In favor.
Councillor Finjura?
In favor?
The motion passes 8-3.
Okay. We're good. Thank you very much. Let's take all these microphones out. Oh. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to report RPC 22-18, discretionary use application 2820 Narcisse Drive. We have a delegation in person with us. Mr. Evan Laskio, Ivana Builds. I'll give you a microphone, just 1 second. Okay, please introduce yourself for the record, what organization you represent, if any. You will have 5 minutes for the presentation. Afterwards, there may be questions from the commission. Go ahead. You've got a microphone.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission, members of administration. It's great to be here today. My name is Evan Lasky. I'm the Vice President of Innovation and New Developments with Havana Developments, Inc. We are predominantly a multifamily builder here in Regina, and we have operations in other markets in Western Canada as well. This development that we propose is 106 units in the Hawkstone neighborhood. It is on a irregular shaped lot that has been vacant since the development of the area in 2014. It is, in our opinion, very well suited to this type of development, and while we did originally propose 148 units on the property through the conscientious review by administration, 106 units fits very well and is very viable for us, and as such we would love to go with that and continue our application with that respect. This neighborhood fits well with the density. We believe that the development is in character with the intention for the development, though the concept plan remains as it has always been. With the changes to the OCP, we did, in our initial evaluation, consider the 148 to be in keeping with the new recommendations in the OCP. However, again, under review, we do propose the 106 at this time. This will be a mix of stacked units, that is in keeping with some of our other developments that has come through the city's books, as well as some row housing that is going to be 2 stories, 8 meters tall with a basement that are going to be 4-bedroom units. That will be a diversification for us, but one that we think will perform quite well in the neighborhood, and we hope that that will address the input from the residents of the neighborhood. I believe we had in the neighborhood of 22 negative or neutral comments against 5 or so positive comments, and it's our hope that with these changes, council will deem it fit for a proposal to continue. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Celestiu. Okay, stop this thing. Okay, are there any questions for the delegation from the commission? Okay, just about that. Okay, Councillor Shaw, go ahead.
Hi, I just have a couple questions. This build, who is your target for the use of this building? Is there a target group of people, or is it just anybody? Do you have an answer for that through the chair?
Through the chair, we are targeting families predominantly that, well, if you look at the spread of the units in the development, be 4-bedroom units. So we're targeting families in those row buildings. The stacked buildings are 3 on top and 2 and 1 building bedroom units on the lower levels. So those would be tailored towards single folks as well as couples and people. Typically what we see is younger people, occasionally students, and new members to the community. That's has traditionally been our market, but again, we welcome all qualified applicants who pass our screening criteria.
So would this be for lower income? Is that part of your screening criteria through the chair?
Through the chair, we would be seeking, if available, support through the housing incentive program as well as the tax abatement program, the same. The percentage of the development that will be constituted as affordable will likely be dependent on the availability of that. 25% has been the number passed around at this point. With the 106 unit development, we are going to likely be at market on the 4 bedrooms, and there will still be room for affordability inside of the development.
Mr. Shaw?
So going on the 25% incentive program, so there would be 25% for affordable housing, and the rest would be an income as how can you just kind of tell me how that would look through the chair for the other 75%?
For the at market, we haven't found issues with the mix of affordability and at market rentals in our operations in the city. It's been quite well received as far as our residents team garners from input. We do not anticipate issues with that. Everybody is provided with the same amenities. The developments themselves, we cater to higher end suites on the top units for the 3 bedrooms, and we, to make some of the single bedrooms and 2 bedrooms affordable, are able to get by with a little bit more affordable trims, fixtures, but we feel the character of the homes is still very much high quality.
Councillor Shaw?
Yeah. having a little bit of a problem with that. I just, what I'm trying to figure out here is, can you tell me why you came to us with the discretionary use of putting it into 148 units? Why the pullback to 140 or 106 units now, through the chair?
In 2014, the concept plan was created for this development, and it states 50 units per hectare as the cutoff for medium density. My interpretation when we were developing this plan originally for the submission was that under the new OCP, medium density could still be achieved with 148 units, and that was where we came at this, and through administration's review, it was determined that 106 fits with that concept plan.
Councillor Shaw?
So with the 106 units, that's going to leave less units for the housing incentive program based at 25% of the occupancy of the apartment. That's what I'm struggling with.
25% number
Can you explain that?
is not fixed. Again, the housing incentive program will have what it has available for us in our application. Obviously, we are secondary to any not-for-profits that would make applications prior to us. And if we are able to do better, that would be ideal. With 148 and the stacked townhomes, that does create more units. That would make a bit more sense, but that's where we're sitting right now.
Councillor Shaw?
So it doesn't make sense to go with the 148, and that's kind of the reasoning why you're doing 106 units? I'm just trying to figure out what's the reasoning behind this, through the chair.
Through the chair, Ivana wishes to follow the OCP, the bylaw that is set forth, that the concept plan is in bylaw. That is why we are moving with 106.
Councillor Shaw?
What do you say to the residents, the lack of transportation, the lack of bus services, the lack of services in that area? What do you say to those people, and what do you say to those people, through the chair?
Through the chair, we've heard commentary with regards to traffic congestion. With respect to public transportation, I cannot make comment to that other than to suggest that additional bus stops be put in the area. As far as accommodation for congestion goes, we have 178 parking stalls in the plan versus what we would envision as 2 parking stalls per row building. So if you think of a 4-unit building that is row with the basements, we'd offer 2 for those 4 bedrooms, and typically offer 1 parking stall for the 3-bed, 2 and 1, and that would still leave in excess of 25 parking stalls on the property, as well as the bordering roads on Suter and Narcisse. There is a lot of additional on-street parking that, in my opinion, is very much usable. And in touring that area in my due diligence, have found that it had not been utilized as parking. And the access into the neighborhood, the couple of feeder roads that access Rochdale, it's quite a good access in my opinion, but again, subjective.
Councillor Shaw?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're subjective to that. And what about the green space? I'd like to talk a bit about that. With that many units and that many families, I see the playground in the middle, which is quite small, and then the small little green space. What was the rationale behind such a lack of green space and play area, green space for that many people in that area? Just wondering how you rationalize that, through the chair.
Through the chair, that is consistent with some other developments that we've been able to get off the ground and develop. The playground space we offer as an amenity for the residents of the community, and we also select the location of this development based on the location, knowing that there is park space to the southwest, that there is a school nearby, that there is access to the commercial center off Rochdale, but that amenity space is above what the requirements are, and we feel very comfortable with what's being offered. There'll be seating, the playground, additional green space on the southeast corner.
Councillor Shaw?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the delegation? Okay, I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much for joining us here and presenting, answering questions. You may return to the gallery. Thank you very much. Okay, now can I get someone to move the report, recommendation report, RPC 2218? Celeste York, thank you very much. And okay, thank you. Let's continue. Ms. Bryden, I believe it's to you again. Can you introduce the report, please?
Thank you. Through the chair. Avana Developments, the applicant, has submitted a discretionary use application for a planned group, which is characterized as multiple buildings on one lot. The original proposal was to develop 148 residential units contained within 16 building stacked townhomes. However, during the review, administration determined that the proposal did not comply with the density requirements for the Hawkstone concept plan, which limit the development to a maximum of 50 units per hectare on this site. It's defined as medium density on their concept plan. The applicant then submitted a revised proposal for 106 residential units, which meets the density targets. The site plan and building layouts between the two proposals did not change. The applicant has removed 42 basement suites from their proposal to meet the density requirements. As such, administration recommends approval of the revised proposal with 106 units. And our team is here to answer any questions. In particular, Mr. Sleva will take any detailed questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Bryden. We've got questions. Mr. Burkowski, go ahead.
Through the chair, I just wondering if you could elaborate on how you got 106 units as the appropriate number for this development based on the lot area that is stated in this application and the target of 25 to 50 units, because it doesn't seem to add up.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Mario will take that one.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Through the chair, since the Hawkstone concept plan identifies the site for medium density, which is 25 to 50 units per hectare, which is based on previous policy, we determined that this policy should also apply to the neighborhood because that's how it was developed. So essentially to be consistent with what is developed and what was approved, this is the density requirement that we required. As to how we arrived at 106 units, we used the area of the lot plus the area of fronting streets, which was consistent with how density was previously calculated. So that's where we arrived at 106 units to satisfy the density requirements.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Shaw, go ahead.
Thank you. My question was asked. Thank you very much. I'm just having some concerns with the services that are offered out there. Havana Homes has been doing this past before. What are your, I have the concerns with the traffic, the services that are offered out there. How are we adjusting them as a city? it's causing a big problem in other areas, in other developments. And now we're going to do it again. I'm just trying to figure out how we're justifying this and how this is going to move forward to offer these services for everyone in the area. And especially, like I said, it was approved at 148, now 106. How is the city going to address this through the chair?
Ms. Dustin, goes to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can take this one. Thank you for the question, Councillor Shaw. The Hawkstone community went through concept plan review and approval a number of years ago, and through that many of the sites have been developed, and it was developed in accordance with the concept plan, minor tweaks here and there. This is one of the last sites to be developed along this area of the Hawkstone concept plan, and so many of the services are already there. There's both residential and commercial nearby. We have transit running to the area, services to the area, and this parcel was always identified for medium density or some form of that throughout the years. And so, you know, as the neighborhood developed, we knew that this area was going to be developed in this way and accounted for it in our reviews.
Dustin, thank you. Councillor Shaw?
So just to kind of put you on the spot, I'm not going to hear a lot of concerns from residents that they're not offered services, they're not offered community events, they're not offered, or they are offered all this stuff through the chair? Is this something that's really, I mean, we say it now and it's happened before. I'm just worried about the certainty in all of this, and especially the services to young families and children in the area. Is there anything more that you can say that's going to help me be confident in this choice through the chair?
Ms. Dustin, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through the land use planning process, we ensure that there's land available for a spectrum of uses, including commercial and residential and many types of residential. And so through the development of the concept plan and neighborhood plan, we ensure that there's an avenue for many different services to be developed in the neighborhood. If we're specifically talking about you know, community services offered by perhaps a community association or services that would be developed in one of our commercial areas, those are outside of our planning review, and we hope that they would be developed you know, in consultation with the community. But I'm not sure if Ms. Bryden has anything further to add in terms of those services if we're talking about that type of services.
Thank you, Ms. Dustin. Ms. Bryden?
Thank you, through the chair. You know, as we move forward in developing our city, and we've developed our master plans, including our recreation master plan and all of our recreation programming, if those types of services are what you're talking about, the transit master plan, and as Ms. Dawson has also already indicated, transit already runs in the area. So as the populations flush out in these different areas, we work to provide services for the community as we work through our plans. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Shaw?
No, thank you, Mr. Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you, guys. Gals, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions, comments for the administration? Okay, hang on a second here. Mr. Dustin, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just have a quick one through the chair. So as I'm looking at the 106 unit site plan, can you confirm for me that the amount of landscaping that's provided is about 33% or about double what's required? The minimum being 15, I understand.
Okay. Ms. Bryden?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, under the proposal with 106 units, the total landscape area is about 33.8%.
Thank you.
Mr. Dustin, thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any further questions, comments If not, okay. Madam Clerk, just call the vote.
Ms. York?
Oh, hang on. There you
Mr.
go.
Aston?
In favor?
Mr. Boykowski?
In favor.
Mr. Sontag?
In favor.
Mr. Pham?
In favor.
Councillor Shaw?
In favor.
Councillor Findura?
In favor.
The vote is unanimous, 7-0.
Thank you very much. I'm still learning how to fly this plane. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. Okay. I'm going to go into RPC 22-19, closure of utility parcel 9501 9th Avenue North. We have a delegation calling in. I believe Mr. Hanchuk from Dream Development, you with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, Mr. Hanchuk, please can you introduce yourself for the record? The organization you represent, if any, and where you're calling from. You will have 5 minutes for a presentation. Afterwards, there'll be questions from the Planning Commission. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present at Regina Planning Commission today. To introduce myself, my name is Evan Hunchuk. I'm the General Manager at Dream, and I reside here in Regina. I represent the developer of the Coopertown community. Today I have a very short presentation and simply wanted to let you know that when the land title was created for these parcels through ISC, they were mistakenly created as a utility parcel. The parcel code classification should have been a generic parcel, not a utility parcel. As such, we require City Council's approval to change the parcel code classification to generic parcel. This would allow the Ministry of Agriculture to transfer these parcels to Dream. Left as is with the utility parcel, a private company is not able to hold the land title. Last fall, you may recall City Council approved the zoning PS Public Service to allow for the correct zoning designation for these lands. In the future, once the infrastructure is constructed, that would be the lift station in the northwest for Coopertown and area, as well as the storm channel. These parcels would then be transferred to the City of Regina at the completion of the infrastructure. I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Hanchuk. I will check the Planning Commission. Any question for the delegation from the Planning Commission? I see no questions. Mr. Hanchuk, thank you very much for taking the time to present. You made yourself very clear, so you may leave the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Ms. Bryden, can I ask you to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, through the chair.
Oh, sorry. Oh, reverse. Check high. Hang on. Can I get someone to move the recommendation, please? Mr. Sontag? Oh, John Aston? Sure. Trying to get out of here quick. Mr. Aston, move that. Okay, Ms. Bryden, sorry for interruptions. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Midwest Surveys Incorporated, on behalf of Dream Asset Management, proposes to remove the municipal utility parcel designations from block MU1-plan 102373321 and block MU2 plan 102373321 as shown in Appendix A3. This designation was applied in error when the subject lands were subject to subdivision approval. Therefore, this process will correct this error. Municipal utility parcel designation applies to municipal lands intended to accommodate a public work or utility. In order to remove a municipal utility parcel designation, City Council must approve an authorizing resolution as per the requirements of the Planning and Development Act 2007. Administration has approved this application and supports the removal of the municipal utility parcel designation.
Ms. Bryden, thank you very much. Okay, any questions for the planning commission? Oh, any questions to the administration from the commission? Seems to be clear. Okay, Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
In favor?
In favor?
Mr. Sontag?
In favor.
Ms. York?
In favor.
Mr. Pham?
In favor.
Councillor Shaw?
In favor.
Councillor Findura?
In favor.
The vote passes unanimously, 7 votes to 0.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move to RPC 22-20, zoning bylaw amendment, backyard suites amendment, with delegation in person. Mr. Niebegol, represent Regina Home Builders Association. Mr. Niebegol, please introduce yourself for the record, the organization you represent, if any, and where you're calling from, or you're coming from here, you're right here. Good to see you in person. You'll have 5 minutes afterwards, and maybe questions from the commission.
Excellent. My name is Stu Niebergall, the President and CEO of the Regina and Region Home Builders Association. Thank you to the Regina Planning Commission for the opportunity to share our perspective on the proposed changes to make backyard suites a permitted use. Adding a new small housing unit detached from the main home is a very viable means of increasing density while minimizing the disruption to established communities. This form of gentle density, which defines a sweet spot between low and high density development. While some cities are considering allowing 3 or 4 homes to be built on an existing lot or encouraging more multi-unit development to achieve higher density, it is often met with significant local citizen pushback, sometimes referred to as NIMBYism. Backyard suites provide a unique opportunity to bring gentle density into the existing neighborhood with less of the perceived negative consequences. This form of gentle density brings the benefits of smarter growth, including easy access to amenities, safer streets, and a variety of housing types to established communities. Backyard suites are almost non-existent in Regina, but could provide many benefits to homeowners, like providing housing for extended families. In Canada and the US, research shows that half the backyard homes are set up for family members, providing affordable yet separate housing for their adult children starting out in life or starting their own families. They're also ideal for elderly parents who want to live independently and defer the high cost of senior complexes as long as possible, yet be close enough to family for help. Some homeowners use backyard suites to generate income and rent from renters to help them with their mortgages or create retirement income. They also create additional revenue for the municipality. Backyard suites create more opportunities for aging in place. Backyard suites lets kids who grow up in a neighborhood stay there, and when the empty nesters are ready to downsize but want to stay in the neighborhood they love, they can just move into the backyard suite and rent the main house to their kids, or even trade rent for reductions for services like yard work, vacation watch, chauffeuring, etc. According to the Canadian Mortgage Trend magazine, recent research, 9 out of 10 Canadians want to be able to live out their retirement years in their property. Additionally, property resale values can increase well above the cost of building the backyard home. Research also shows that well-integrated backyard suites will increase the average property values in the neighborhood, and any suggestion otherwise is incorrect. There are significant community benefits as well. Backyard homes provide reasonably priced rental in single-family neighborhoods closer to amenities, jobs, and urban lifestyle. With more eyes on the laneway, backyard homes help to make alleyways safer places. built in the backyard and designed to look like small versions of the main house. Backyard homes don't affect the curb appeal and the character of older single-family neighborhoods. Small homes, by virtue of their size, use less resources and are nearly as energy efficient as a condo. Add in green building features like energy efficient appliances and heating systems and even solar, and they are ultra green. This form of housing aligns spot on with the energy and sustainability framework passed by this council. Backyard homes optimize collective infrastructure by channeling some level of urban development into areas that are already served by public infrastructure. And as more people move to Regina over the next 25 years, backyard homes are a very human-friendly way the city can gently increase the density of single-family neighborhoods to provide housing and accommodate regional growth. Cities like Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, Vancouver, along with the majority of Ontario municipalities, have benefited from significant levels of allowable backyard homes. The City of Toronto recently took the courageous step forward by making backyard homes a right in all residential zones. We believe the city administration recommendation will ensure this form of housing is well integrated into the existing neighborhoods. The regulations will respect the size and siting of other buildings. Backyard homes can be a key element in policies that transition towards a more sustainable city. We encourage the Regina Planning Commission to support the city administration's recommendations. And I can take any questions.
That was fast, it was good. Thank you, Mr. McGall. Are there any questions from the commission to the delegation? I will stop the beep and, okay. No questions? Well, no one's gonna ask anything. I'll have a short little conversation with you, Mr. Nebo, if you don't mind. Uptake, meaning, in the surveys and all you hear, some might want to, I don't want it in my neighborhood, it's a good idea. Cost, backyard to, because it's going to the whole city. So there are a lot of areas where have it's just easements, or not even that, it's fence to fence. How an uptake on that? Expensive? Let's say if I do something in mine with above my garage, a front driveway, how would that?
Yeah, I think the best way to think about this particular backyard policy is to really just think of it, it's an addition to a house. Today, you can add to that house already as a permitted use through a secondary suite. This is just a secondary suite that's not attached to the house, and it gives more flexibility and more choice in more circumstances. The policy itself is not permitting, the choice of a secondary suite and a backyard suite. It's an either or. So, and in terms of uptake, the pilot project, I think we haven't seen a lot of details from the administration on that over the years, but I think the pilot projects were pretty small uptake on that, but they were very regionally or very tight to the areas. I think when you make this citywide, I think you'll see some moderate, I think it'll actually be minimal uptake within the marketplace. Our current housing supply and where we're at today, I don't think the city's going to be overwhelmed with these applications. But I think people will be able to apply these situations to best fit their circumstances. And I think the other big aspect of this, ultimately, our city is challenged, and we've heard much about this over recent years about trying to achieve, our infill targets. And so this is just another building form that helps us achieve that, while again allowing people access into existing neighborhoods that ultimately they don't have access today. without making significant purchases within that home. From our perspective, like there's no downside to allowing these within the marketplace. If you look, finally, going on about this a little bit, if you look at the literature out there, as different communities have been working through this across North America over the past 10, 20, 30 years, there is no doubt that neighbor concerns around issues like parking and things like that, property values are very common, that people have these particular fears. But the literature doesn't, and the research doesn't support any of those particular fears being, really becoming into fruition. So again, we don't see a big downsides to this. In terms of for our industry, it's got a small market opportunity to it. So I don't think this will fundamentally change the fabric of our city. What it'll allow us is just one more tool that the municipality has to accommodate people's wants, at the very same time, get a step closer to achieving some of those density targets that have been challenging.
Right on, Mr. Niebergall, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. There's questions coming up. Hang on. Who's got first? So I believe, Celeste, do you want to go?
Okay, thank you. Is it on?
It's on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Through you, Mr. Chair. A quick question. You mentioned that a backyard suite is similar to putting an addition on to one's home. But my question would be, and maybe I've misunderstood the literature, but my understanding is that a backyard suite needs to be separately serviced. So you're not tying in to the existing water and sewer connections. That's got to be separate, and that there's a significant cost that goes with that. So it's more like new construction rather than just an addition to the existing home. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a very fair perspective. Well, I guess what my analogy there is it's thinking more, somewhat spatial. You're thinking of adding 600 square feet to your home, and or as a secondary suite, or you're adding that separation between the two buildings. Again, it's just giving you more choices, in terms of how you pull this together to fit your lifestyle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. York. Mr. Saunders, did you want to speak? Just push the button. There you are. Now it's going to turn red. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Stu and Mr. Chair. I'm new to this committee, so I'm not sure. I actually have a question for the officials and one for Stu, so I can ask them afterwards.
You ask Stu first, and then when he goes, then...
Stu, welcome. It's nice to see you in a different capacity.
Yes, that's right.
You referenced a little bit of statistical information, and I'm curious, are there comparable jurisdictions that you looked at to come up with your report? I'm recently retired, so I'm not sure I'm happy about being relegated to the backyard, but I say that facetiously, of course. I've always generally been in favor of this concept, and I think it's the right direction to go. But in Canada, that's my main question. Are there jurisdictions that, I don't think it's fair to compare it to Vancouver or Toronto, but are there any place that you can come up with good comparisons?
Yeah, so, again, Calgary, Edmonton all have these as allowable uses. I think the report captures many of those ideas. I think one of the advantages of our city being a little late to the game on some of these things, they've really been able to, see my reading of the report of the, some of the challenges in other markets, and have been able to address that. I think the report is put some pretty tight constraints, in place here. Like I mentioned, most cities in Ontario now provide those, cities like London, Ontario, etc. To that. One of the reports, I went through is one from that was supported by CMHC, from a group called ARPENT about Quebec. where these have been extensively, part of theirs process for a long period of time. And again, I go through the literature and I just struggle to find the downside to these. The major challenge I think ultimately why they're just not available everywhere all the time. Again, there is in all communities, there's a level of NIMBYism. I don't mean to sound that disparaging. I get people have fears when there's changes to their neighborhood. Again, this is a very, very subtle change to the neighborhood. Again, I think in future years, we'll barely notice these things are in place by comparison to significantly other built forms that come with intensification.
Do you know what the, I think it's anecdotal and probably just intuitive, but I feel the same as you do, that it'll take a while for anybody to start doing this, but looking at jurisdictions like Edmonton or London, you said, has that been the experience as well, or do you know, maybe you don't know the answer to that question, but...
Yeah, I probably don't know the answer well enough to that. In fact, maybe the city's report and their research on this will actually probably provide more insight to what cities' experiences are.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, that's all I have. Thanks.
Mr. Sontag, thank you very much. Just going to scan one more time here to see if there's any lights going on. Any further questions for the delegation? Mr. Niebergall?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for presenting,
Okay.
taking time to come out. Thank you. You may return to the gallery. Okay. Can I have someone to move the report? Mr. Sontag? Thank you. And I'll give the microphone to Ms. Bryden. Could you please introduce the report? Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Backyard suites, previously referred to as laneway or garden suites, are secondary living units in their own structure on a residential lot. They can be beside or above a garage or in a standalone structure. Backyard suites are becoming an increasingly popular housing option across Canada. The city has conducted 3 pilot projects in the past decade to assess the viability and impacts of permitting backyard suites within residential zones throughout the city. Additionally, public consultation was conducted on numerous occasions in 2015, 2019, and 2022 to determine the public appetite and reception of backyard suites, and they have generally indicated support for backyard suites. Administration is recommending that the zoning bylaw be amended to allow backyard suites as a permitted use in all residential zones where a secondary suite would currently be allowed. The administration is proposing that the regulations would be generally similar to regulations that were applied to the infill pilot projects. This would limit the height of buildings to 5.8 meters as opposed to 7.5 meters, which was allowed in the greenfield pilot projects. And administration is confident that the proposed regulations adequately balance the need and desire for this dwelling type with impact on abutting properties. Consequential amendments to the housing incentive policy are also being proposed to allow housing incentives to apply to backyard suites similar to how it currently applies to secondary suites. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Bryden. And there are questions. Mr. Wojtkowski, get your microphone. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. I guess I have a number of questions, actually. Secondary suites, areas where secondary suites are allowed, would the backyard suite count as the allowable secondary suite, or if I had a housing form with a secondary suite in the basement, am I still allowed to develop a backyard suite?
Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I actually know the answer to that one, no. The options would be either like a secondary suite in the residence or a backyard suite.
Okay. Then when we are looking at the last report, or not the last, the previous one from the developer, where we're looking at targets for development areas, certain units per hectare. Would a secondary suite, in this case, like a separate unit on a lot, be considered against this unit target? Because it provides the potential to develop a whole row of housing and then add basically double your potential for the lot after the fact.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Mario will take this one.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Through the chair, the intent of this zoning amendment is not to change the potential density of any area in the city. And that's because any single detached residential has the ability today to have a secondary suite. So as per the previous question, you can either have the secondary suite or the backyard suite. So really all we're doing is taking we're allowing for it to be in a separate building is essentially what is changing here. More to the point to your question though, the target densities that we assign to concept plans are really just estimations, and no, they don't consider the potential for a secondary suite because it's only a small percentage of units that do that, at least initially, but over time that may evolve. That's something beyond the scope of the density policy in a concept plan.
So there's not a lot of concern that this could be used as a housing form for rental purposes, and then like just overwhelm the infrastructure in an area. Or, I mean, it looks like there's not that much potential for it. The uptake won't be that high. And I'm looking at really older neighborhoods. I think the concern would be really, how do I service a backyard suite with a separate service from the front? It's nearly impossible, I think, without redeveloping the entire lot. So, okay.
Mario, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, there's no separate service connection required. However, the existing service connection may be required to be upgraded to a larger diameter. So that is something that each proposal will need to consider as part of the entire investment. And through that, we have a review process to determine whether or not it's possible to hook into the main at the front of the street. As for the overall system capacity, as I said, there's no impact on density. In fact, we see this as being largely a smaller percentage of the entire secondary suite market, if you want to call it that, because they will be more expensive. So it's likely that we'll continue to see secondary suites be the dominant sort of form of housing as compared to this one.
Maybe one more question. I didn't review the entire proposed regulation. So is there a target or is there a limit on the size, the floor area of the secondary suite?
Mr. Murray, go ahead.
Through the chair, it would be the same as what a secondary suite is limited to. So that would be 80 square meters or 80% of the size of the primary dwelling, whichever is lesser.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bukowski. Are there any further questions? Oh, here we go. Councillor Shaw, go ahead.
Can we just quickly talk about the infrastructure and the additional services now with the water and the sewer? How is that going to impact our already draining and our already, we're having a lot of problems with it already, and I'm just wondering how the city has looked at, how our administration has looked at this to how this will impact it, the already problems and concerns that we have already. Through the chair.
Okay, Ms. Dawson, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We don't anticipate any further demands than currently available or I guess used when there's a secondary suite in the dwelling. So now instead of in the dwelling, if somebody chooses to have the secondary suite or the backyard suite, they would be showering there, and instead of their suite within the basement or wherever that secondary suite would be within the primary dwelling. So
we don't anticipate that there'll be increased consumption.
So Shaw?
No, just quickly, can you help me explain to me this, how we've seen the tax exemption and stuff like that? Administration, can you help me understand this a little bit clearer? Give me a kind of the Coleman's notes of how that's going to work through the chair?
Are we going to? Ms. Dustin? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have Ms. Pfeiffer on the line, and I'm wondering if she could run through the points that Councillor is asking.
Okay, Ms. Pfeiffer, go ahead.
Sure. So just for clarification, so I understand the question. The question is, what's the process for someone to apply for the exemption?
Councillor Shaw?
Yes, and why is this exemption being put in place for taxes and so on and so forth? Because I'm kind of seeing this as like a tax grab from what I've read and what I see. So can you maybe just explain that to me a little bit better? Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Pfeiffer, go ahead.
Sure. So through the offer a 25% tax exemption for secondary suites. So this policy amendment really is just to bring it in line with the zoning amendment change that's being proposed. If backyard suites are being treated the same as secondary suites, then they would also be eligible for that tax exemption. So again, it's a 5-year 25% tax exemption to support new housing options in the city, and this would be applicable again in line with the current policy in under the housing incentives policy in areas 1 and 2. As far as the process for someone to apply for that, if someone is constructing a secondary suite or a backyard suite, they would send an application through the city, and if they meet the eligibility requirements, so they're in the correct areas of the city where we provide that incentive, and they're meeting the requirement, which is for long-term rental purposes over that 5 years where they're receiving the exemption, then they would be eligible for it.
Councillor Shaw?
Thank you for that. I also, the height here, we talked about the height. Now, as I recall, and I'm sure we all remember, just a little while ago, there was a discussion with the community center that they didn't want houses built over the allowable 7.5 meters. All of a sudden it got passed that those 3 blocks in Regina weren't allowed to be the house over that certain percentage. What I'm concerned about now is that happening with these secondary suites. That, you stipulate 7.5 meters, but then what happens all of a sudden, a community center comes towards us and says, oh, we want these 2 blocks to be over. Can you speak to that a little bit and how that would work? And what's the reason behind the height being limited to 5.8 meters as opposed to 7.5 meters? Through the chair.
Biden, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So I'll start, and then Mr. Mario might want to add some more details. But the proposed building height is consistent with the third pilot project and what we heard from the communities. This is one of the shortest in Canada, with other municipalities anywhere between 6 and 7.5 meters. We talked to Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, and Vancouver. Vancouver has similar 5.8 to 6.7 meter depending on the roof shape. So, that's really where we landed, thinking this is what was the best for our community. Mr. Mario, do you have further to add?
Through the chair, the only thing that I would add is that since this would be a permitted use, we wanted to keep the height as limited as possible to try to minimize the impact on adjacent properties. So that was one of the driving factors for arriving at that recommendation.
Councillor Shaw?
Okay, so the second question, we just came in with this new grading bylaw. How will this affect, I mean, a new grading bylaw is to help ensure this, and I'm dealing with so many issues right now with people putting on just a garage and the grading and stuff that goes along with that. Can you foresee any future complications with the grading when we're adding these backyard suites? Through the chair.
Ms. Bryden, start with you or go to Mr. Mario?
Thank you, through the chair, Mr. Mario.
Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair, I guess the easiest way to think about this is it would really be no different than building a garage currently. The only difference is what's happening within the structure is the only difference. So there would be no impacts on the grading.
Shaw?
Right, because now we have a bylaw in place for that. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. York?
Am I on?
You on?
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just I'd like a little bit more elaboration on the water sewer piece, particularly as it applies to existing older neighborhoods like Lakeview, the Crescents, et cetera, in terms of some of the issues that residents have had in those areas with flooding and with sewer issues and backup and the size of pipes. And I know that in the city's long-term plan, there's a plan to upgrade, but I'm just wondering how that will fit in with people wanting to put in a backyard suite and then not being able to because there isn't the capacity. So will that be looked at in a different manner, perhaps?
Do I start with you, Ms. Bryden, or are we going to go to Mr. Mario? Go ahead.
Through the chair, I'll take a stab at it. So I guess what would happen is when an application comes forward, it would be reviewed for compliance with the city standards through our Servicing and Infrastructure Approvals branch. If there are any specific concerns to the lot, and sometimes they do come up with, maybe it might have to do with condition of the water main on the fronting street or something like that, then that would be flagged. So in some cases, yeah, it might be a barrier to the ultimate development of it, but we would anticipate those situations to be relatively minor. As I said before, it's likely that an existing common water line would need to be upgraded to allow for adequate pressure to the rear of the lot because it is such a longer expanse. So to conform with city standards, the likely solution is to upgrade in those situations.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. York? Okay, so I think we've got Mr. Aston's next, and then Mr. Sontague after that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a question on the actual calculation of the building height of 5.8 meters. Is that I just don't know how that is measured. Is that the midpoint of roof, or what's the actual calculation of that? Thank you.
Through the chair, that's correct. It would be consistent with how a typical building is measured. That would be to the midpoint between the top of wall and the peak.
Okay, just follow up on that question through the chair. So 5.8 would be a reasonably short two-story opportunity then for a backyard suite?
Yeah, through the chair, it would be relatively short. Likely what you'll find are, if it's a peaked roof, you'll probably find dormers to try to expand the usable floor area and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's relatively short.
And I guess final question, I said that earlier, but this is the final one. So it sounded like you had kind of looked at other communities for guidance on that, but if we're not really kind of allowing a two-story as a permitted sort of relatively easily, was there any thought to moving it up to allow for that? I'm just thinking of some of the built forms are often like a garage with a suite above. So, thanks to the chair.
So Mario, that's to you again? Who's going to take that?
Apologies, could you repeat the last part of that question?
I'll phrase it better. Many other communities, I think where I've seen this is like a suite in the backyard where it's on top of a garage. So our 5.8 would actually make that pretty touch and go whether it would be allowed. Was that done purposely or was it considered, I guess?
So Mario, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, it would allow for a second story above a garage. Within Appendix D2, there is an example on 3321 Regina Avenue, which complies with the proposed height limit, and as well on D2. So these are examples of the type of building and the form of the building and massing that would be allowed.
Thank you.
Mr. Aston, good? Okay. Okay, Mr. Sonntag, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of my questions actually were answered through some of the other questions that were already asked, but I was curious about your response around density. So is your understanding from other jurisdictions, let me rephrase this, my understanding from other jurisdictions is it actually did increase density, and while I concur at the onset, yeah, there would be marginal increase in density, probably for a number of years, but isn't one of the objectives to try and increase density a little bit? I mean, I can see a number of individuals that would wanted to develop a secondary suite outside of their house, not that just because somebody's got a secondary suite in their basement doesn't mean, you know, that they wouldn't want something outside. So I think if it starts to catch on, you will, and I would hope should see a little bit of increased density. So just curious about that. That's my only question.
Okay. Ms. Brennan or Ms. Dawson, okay, go to you. Go ahead.
I suppose, and maybe I shouldn't clarify Mr. Maria's comment, but since we already allow for secondary suites within dwelling units, I think the comment was related to we wouldn't see more density than we currently allow within permitted uses. However, you are right, through our research, backyard suites have been a way to allow for gentle density in more residential areas without the need for extra infrastructure or real impact to you know, the services in that area. And just an alternative for a residence for people who may already be living in one unit and maybe need to expand to two. For example, you know, an older child or maybe even a child that still needs to be close to home for you know, dependent reasons or whatever. But it is a form of gentle density, but the comment was more so related to it's already permitted within the confines of the existing house, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sonntag. Okay, are there any further questions for the administration? I see none. Okay. Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Sonntag.
Oh, hang on. We gotta get you that airplane again.
In favor.
Ms. York.
In favor.
Mr. Aston.
In favor.
Mr. Boykowski.
In favor.
Mr. Pham.
In favor.
Councillor Shaw.
In favor.
Councillor Finjura.
In favor.
The motion passes unanimously 7-0.
Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, I call adjournment. Anybody will call, someone will say that? Okay, Mr. Austin, call adjournment. Anyone opposes? No one opposes? I want to hang on here with you guys more. Great, it's passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Good to see everyone in person. We're just about there. Thank you.